Jane Collective Group, which is also known as the Abortion Counseling Service of Women's Liberation, was an underground abortion service that was orchestrated in Chicago, Illinois from 1969 to 1973. This corporation, with using most of the opinions we gathered, had a major impact on the world, especially in Chicago. This group had a positive impact by making abortion more accessible to the public, giving women a voice over their own bodies, and making life more affordable for women in poverty. Although many would agree that ACS promotes religious action against the government, this group gave many women the opportunity to gain their rights.
A good question is, how did something like this, which helped thousands of women, start? Well, it started with one woman who was motivated by her friend's story. This tragic story is set in 1965. A friend of mine was raped at knife point in her bed in an off-campus room. They stated that they couldn't do anything and left her confused and lost. And instead of helping her, they judged her and did nothing but address how sinful she was. Shocking enough, something like the right to have abortions is so small for us in the present, but huge to women in the past. Before 1973, abortions were illegal, and anyone who were to partake in the procedure and the law found out about it would have to face the consequences set by the Supreme Court. We may ask ourselves, how could the people who are supposed to help us not help us? With the story, it made Heather Booth, a student from the University of Chicago, determined to better the lives of women all over the world. It started with the women of Jane trying to search for some physicians who were willing to support their cause. In the search, they came upon a physician named Mike who appreciated their cause so much despite the consequences, he still worked with them. The women of Jane soon found out that Mike was not actually a physician, but the procedure he does works and is safe. The women started to learn the same techniques as Mike so they can perform procedures themselves, which made things a lot more effective for the group in general.
A woman who had a huge contribution to the ACS goes by the name of Judith Arcand. She was first introduced to the Jane Collective Group when she needed her first abortion. After her experience, she wanted to help other women in need of abortions too. In a documentary she interviewed in 2014, published by Melissa Medina, she states her experience with clients, arrests, and many other events. These are her following words.
Here's how it went. I mentioned the front and the place. These were people's homes. These were apartments. Sometimes it would be a house, but mostly it would be apartments. And these people would go away for the day, take the kids, take the cats, and just give us their place, their home to use for the day, which in itself is an extraordinary gift and a wonderful sense of camaraderie among the people. I loved this. I heard this in court because, I was the driver. So when they testified in court, they said, well, we had to follow her several times. I thought, yes, because I was doing all this diversionary, because even though we really sort of knew that at any moment we could get busted, mainly we thought, well, it could happen, and we had a rule, don't go to work without a lawyer's phone number in your pocket.
The Rights of Women, written by Sylvia Feldman, states the Commission on Population collected the data on the estimated numbers of abortion, which was 200,000 to 1,200,000. In 1972, over two-thirds of the states still made abortions illegal. Abortion was only acceptable in these states if the women were in the conditions of preserving the life of the mother, preventing the birth of defective offspring, or in the case of rape and incest. In 1973 was the second attempt to make abortion legal. The Supreme Court and Citizens Committee all over the U.S. abolished most abortion laws, which made abortion legal until 24 weeks of pregnancy. Many women who participated in this act of courageousness in the search of one dream. This dream consisted of women being able to freely make a choice to have an abortion if needed to do so.
There was a woman who came that day who had a 2-year-old who was having surgery at Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago. And her husband, the little girl's dad, was at Children's Memorial for her, and the woman was with us for her abortion. And asked me, do you think you could take me back as soon as I'm done? And I thought, oh, why not? She's so anxious, the child is in the hospital. So I said, sure. And it was in a high rise. And so we were waiting outside the elevator. I was coming up, but they were the police, and they grabbed us. And she, of course, was terrified. She didn't have the, training and pep talks that I had had. And I said to her, you don't have to say anything. The law allows you to remain silent. And of course, as soon as they heard me say that to her and saw her burst into tears, they knew that I was, in their terms, a perpetrator, and she was, in their terms, a victim. And so they set us aside. And then they went and got the others, and they went to the front, and they arrested everybody there, which was like 40 people.
Many women had to risk going to jail for a year on a $1,000 fine if they had an abortion before 1973. In a 1995 documentary film called Danger to Dignity, The Fight for Safe Abortion, directed by filmmaker Dorothy Feldman, women tell their story about how it was back then before it was any reproductive choice. One woman states, when you see something so wrong socially and you have a chance and you don't do anything about it, it's hard to sleep with yourself at night. Some women wanted to help, but didn't want to risk going to jail. Arlene Carter states, women were so desperate. There were so many terrible stories about women with their illegal abortions. Women were risking their lives to partake in procedures that should have been provided for them already. Could we have avoided all these deaths? Was not having abortions a good thing? Some agree and some disagree, mostly because of the religious factors, but no one would know unless they were put into the same situation.
What can they possibly imagine would justify making an 11-year-old child go through a full-term pregnancy? What is the rationale there? And of course, all the rationales about life and God and everything just aren't even in the same universe as the life of this little girl. Here's one of the surprising things I remember. This woman, the mother, when she came, she was wearing white gloves, and she wore her purse over her arm, and she was dressed beautifully as if she were going to a luncheon. And her child, the little girl, was also dressed very neatly and cleanly. And for some reason, this picture of them, and especially that's what rises in my memory, something about her desire to present them as a pair, a mother-daughter pair. And, it's just heartbreaking, really, to think about their situation. And then I have this memory image.
While there are many who are pro-choice and believe that women have the rights over their own bodies, there are those in society who are pro-life and is extremely against abortion. A few arguments that a pro-life activist would have is that abortion is murder, it can cause psychological damage, and that it shouldn't be used as a contraceptive for the convenience of women. However, according to abortion.procon.org, abortion is intendedly murder. Considering personhood doesn't begin until you are able to survive outside of a womb and on your own, or until you're born, making fetus non-eligible. Also, mentioned on abortion.procon.org, women who are denied abortion are more likely to suffer from mental illnesses than women who aren't, refuting the claim that more women who have abortion suffer from psychological problems. My final review is in regards to women using abortion as a contraceptive for their personal convenience. As proven by a study of a university in California, women who are denied abortion are more likely to suffer in poverty, become on public welfare, and depend on the government for assistance to life because they are unemployed, than women who aren't. As one can see, abortion isn't an option to women for their personal pleasures, but more so to ensure that she isn't birthing life into the world when she is in no position to care for the child. It would be just irresponsible to bring a child into the world when the mother nor the family isn't financially prepared and allow the child to suffer, than to stop the damage before it is done.
With as a counselor or an abortionist or assisting abortionist, or people who did not have the kind of money that would have gotten them a private abortion with their own doctor. That's one of the things I really, again, I hadn't thought about it in the earlier years of my life, but once I began to do this work, I realized, well, of course, women with money can get abortions. They always have been able to get abortions, no matter what the law is.
With all this being being said, the Jane Collector Group have played a huge role in the lives of many women in Chicago, changing the perspective of abortion, making it more acceptable, accessible, helping improve the lives of women in poverty, and overall giving women a voice over their own bodies.